Mics are on.
Blue Jays are winning 10-1.
Okay. Good evening. We still have quorum, so I'll call to order for this PNP meeting for the May 21st, 2019. First, I guess we'll have the adoption of the agenda.
Actually, if you could first do a motion to extend the curfew.
Okay, actually to extend curfew at 9:59. So this will be that the rules of procedure as contained in the Town of Pelham procedural bylaw be suspended, and that the specified meeting curfew time of 10 be and is hereby waived. And that the remainder of the business listed on the agenda for the meeting continue to be considered until we have to pick here? Until 11 or whichever's first.
All matters have been concluded or until a set time of 11, whichever occurs first.
Okay. So, you heard that? All matters until concluded or a set time of 11, whichever occurs first. So, I'll put this to question.
So it's all matters have been considered or a set time of 11,
Okay.
11 whichever
So-
comes first.
So, all in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, and the adoption of the agenda. This is put forward by Councillor Stewart. That the agenda for the 21st, May 21st meeting be adopted. All in favor?
Through you, Madam Chair, you do have one amendment to remove the one report that was moved over to council. So if you could just ask for an amendment first, please.
So I need someone to move that.
You have a
So,
mover there.
okay, Councillor Wink. That the agenda for the May 21st Policy and Priorities meeting be amended by removing item 5.2, recommendation report regarding amendment to interim control bylaw 4046, 2018, 770 Foss Road from the agenda. All in favor? Carried.
So this is for the motion as amended, or the agenda as amended.
And then put forward by Councillor Hillebrand, adoption of agenda as amended. That the agenda for May 21st, 2018, regular meeting of committee be adopted as amended. All in favor? Carried. So where are we at here? Does any member of council have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof?
Okay, I live 6 houses from the subject property of 1120 Hay Street. The sale of 1120 Hay Street could have a positive or negative impact to the value of our personal residence.
Anyone else? Thank you. So noted. All right. So new business. Put forward by, well, it was me, but no, it's Councillor Wink. Agenda 4.1, scent-free workplace policy. That the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the scent-free workplace policy background report, and that the committee recommend that council approve the following resolution. That the Town of Pelham implement a scent-free workplace policy to demonstrate our continued commitment to employee health and safety by ensuring that our workplace remains comfortable for all workers, visitors, and the public. Is there any discussion? No? Okay, I'll call us then. Is all in favor? Carried. All right. Just a quick question. So we're still going to have business? This is 4.2.
100 Welland Road.
Oh, okay. All right, agenda 4.2, site plan approval application, 100 Welland Road recommendation report. This is put forward by Councillor Kaur. That committee received the Department of Community Planning and Development report for information as it pertains to application file SP04-18, 100 Welland Road, and that committee direct planning staff to prepare the bylaw and site plan agreement authorizing the mayor and clerk to enter into a site plan agreement between the Town of Pelham and 1977655 Ontario Inc. for Ontario Welland Road, and that committee recommend that council approve the bylaw and enter into a site plan agreement between the town and 1977655 Ontario Inc. Any discussion? Councillor Kaur?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. When I'm looking at the site plan agreement, I noticed the garbage pad. It's on the on the west side of the drawing. Now, would that not interfere with the residents that are backing onto that?
Madam Chair, through you, the garbage pad is a requirement that the region has asked for. And so what that will mean is that they'll come into the site and pick up the garbage. The pads themselves are not on the traveled roadway, they're just alongside it, and in the common area of the condominium.
Through you, Madam Chair, would that not result in this order if after a week or so that?
No, Madam Chair, through you, if I can clarify, that is where they put their garbage on the day of pickup. It's not where the garbage sits all week. It's
Okay.
only during the day that the garbage pickup is scheduled to
So
occur.
they bring their recycling and garbage to that point, and the garbage people pick it up from that point?
That's correct.
Okay. Through you, also, a couple more questions about this site plan agreement. On the original one, you have a parking lot, I presume, on the east side. That's not, I understand that was supposed to be commercial, right? Isn't it?
Yes, Madam Chair, through you, on the east side of this property is the Circle K convenience store and the gas pumps. So there is a parking lot associated with that. The site plan for this on the Circle K site also provides for another commercial building and expansion of the parking lot. That second building hasn't yet been constructed, and the expanded parking lot has not yet been constructed. We anticipate that they'll be starting that work sometime this year.
And through you, Madam Chair, are there two properties owned by the same people?
Madam Chair, through you, no, they are separate ownership. Initially, this site where the residential is proposed was owned by the same company that developed the Circle K and the gas bar and the second building, but they have subsequently sold this site. They're not residential developers, and they've sold it, and they've retained the commercial piece.
And through you, a couple more questions. The driveway, the curved driveway that's on the, I presume on the south side of the development, that, at no time would that enter the future development, right?
It will connect through, yes.
It will connect through?
Yes.
So they'll,
Connect through for two purposes. The internal roadway is more than 90 meters in length, so there's the requirement to have a second access point for our emergency response purposes. And also the region, in terms of garbage pickup, if they're going to be picking up garbage in this site, they want to be able to drive through. Otherwise, they would need to have a very large, what's referred to as a hammerhead back up and turnaround, which would take out a significant portion of the site. So it will be connected through to that commercial parking lot, and it will be utilized to provide for movement for waste management vehicles and emergency vehicles.
through you. So with the new development on the east side, so there'll be how many exits or entrance or exits on South Pelham? And-
On Pelham Street,
Yeah,
there
or-
is.
I'm sorry, Pelham Street.
There's one entrance that you currently exists there today. There's no additional entrance.
So where people go get their gas, right? That's the only
That's
entrance?
correct.
So there won't be one on the south side?
No.
And one other question, what is that drawing? And it's right on the east side. It's an oval shape. It's right beside the gas tanks. Are those cleaning or pumps or?
Madam Chair, through you, that is where they fill the underground tanks.
Oh, okay. Okay, one other question. This gas station, does it have propane storage? Outside?
I'm not aware if they do or don't.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, chief?
Madam Chair, they don't have a bulk station, they have caged tanks.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, questions?
Through you, Madam Chair. Madam Director, the west side of that property right now has a large, high fence. Is that to be maintained or is that to be changed?
Madam Chair, through you, the fence that's along the residential properties will be maintained.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'll call the question. I don't know if, do I need to read this again? Does anybody want me to
If
read this
anyone
again?
wants you to, but
No? Okay, so we'll call this to vote then. All in favor? It's carried. Now put forward by Councillor Chofi, agenda item 4.3, resource options for developing short-term vacation rental regulations. That the Policy and Priorities Committee receive this report on resource options for developing short-term rental regulations, vacation rental regulations, and that committee recommend that council maintain the status quo given the approved budget restrictions, with staff completing the work related to developing policies, regulations, and licensing requirements for short-term vacation rentals as time permits. Some discussion.
Through you, Madam Chair, do we have a time span? Are we gonna have this bylaw by the end of the year, September?
Our goal is to get something to you by the end of August, early September.
And through you, Madam Chair, are we gonna be enforcing the existing bylaws?
Currently, there are no existing bylaws with respect to short-term vacation rentals. There is a bylaw with respect to, there is no specific bylaw with respect to short-term vacation rentals.
What are the, what's the legalities of grandfathering when we pass a bylaw and we know there's obviously in existence Airbnbs or short-term rentals? How does that work, please?
Madam Chair, through you, with respect to zoning, there is the ability to have grandfathering acknowledged and recognized, but the use has to have been legally established. With respect to licensing, there is no grandfathering provision in licensing. So if the requirement is that all of these units be licensed, then they must get licensing by law, and in order to meet the licensing requirements, they need to be appropriately zoned. And so if council were to not permit these in a residential neighborhood, they would need to get their license, and they would have to go through site-specific zoning bylaw amendments to get their licenses.
And then one other question to you, if I may. So when they are grandfathered, they're grandfathered in forever? Like, as opposed, I'm thinking, okay, you're here now, you've got 40 days to comply, but that doesn't work. They're grandfathered in.
That's correct. Grandfathering allows for, if you were a legal use that was legally established and the zoning changed, then you can't take away those legal rights that were established through approval through zoning. In this situation, because the bylaw is silent with respect to short-term vacation rentals, to establish the fact that they were legally established it's a bit nebulous. So that's why, we would say that they'd have to go through site-specific zoning bylaw amendments if they're going to, be allowed. And so ones that council may wish to permit because they are operating in a good manner, we may want to recognize those, through the, coming forward with any amendments that we're going to make. So there's different options that we can present to council in terms of how to address those that do exist. And but if council makes a decision that they do not want what is commonly referred to as a short-term vacation rental that is not owner occupied, because those are the ones that are, for the most part, where we have issues, then they would need to go through site-specific approvals to get permission.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any discussion?
Yeah, just one question. The insurance providers that, when these people are having short-term rentals, are their insurance providers know that they're renting these homes on a short-term basis? And would they be covered if there was a fire or an accident?
So my understanding is that certainly listing properties through some of these host providers, whether it's Airbnb or Home Away, those host providers do have requirements that you have to have insurance. Also, through a licensing bylaw, we can require that they have insurance and proof of insurance, and we can require insurance up to a certain amount. Could be $2 million or $5 million or, things like that. So yes, there are ways of ensuring that these properties are appropriately insured and they carry the appropriate waivers in terms of acknowledgement that they're being used for short-term vacation rentals.
And one more question. So this summer, when we get residents that have concern about their neighbors renting out to Airbnb, so they're not breaking the law or breaking any bylaws?
At the moment, no, they're not. Our bylaw, because our bylaw is silent with respect to that, it's, our ability to enforce them is very weak.
So through you, Madam Chair, so the only solution for a person that's upset with the neighbor or ruckus at 2 o'clock in the morning is to phone the police?
Well, with respect to noise complaints that are after hours, we do not have by law enforcement or anything like that on. So noise complaints would be a police matter, correct?
Councilor Wing?
So we have an interim bylaw restricting any further cannabis operations and whatever. Would an interim bylaw restricting short-term rentals until such time as we figure this out, would that be appropriate? Can we do something like that?
That was something that Madam Chair, through you, that was something that we did look at last summer when this was kind of hitting the proverbial fan. Based on the legal advice that we got, an interim control bylaw would not be effective in this case. And again, it's because the way the bylaw is silent with respect to these matters. So it was certainly something that we had thought about.
So I would assume that, yeah, it might not hold a lot of water in court, but if we said that we have an interim bylaw that does not allow short-term rentals in the town of Pelham or in the urban areas or whatever, that could be used as a deterrent going forward. Madam
Chair, through you, I don't know how strong of a deterrent it could be.
Do you know what, if I were the bylaw officer and said, okay, we've got an interim bylaw that says you can't be operating this, cease and desist type of thing, yeah, they may take us to court, but by the time they take us to court, quite frankly, is it gonna be worth their while to even take us to court? And I'd be willing to take that risk.
It's really a bark without a bite.
Exactly.
Yes.
But
So then the question is, how long would it take us to go off on ICB?
So, Madam Chair, through you, what council would need to do is pass a notice of motion that they intend to pass an interim control bylaw. That notice of motion would have to be presented at the next council meeting, and then the council meeting following that, you would pass an interim control bylaw.
Okay, and Councillor Chope, you had a question?
No, that was the question. I was gonna ask that. Thank you.
Alrighty, anyone else? Okay, so I guess we move on. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chairman, my only concern, Madam Director, is the fact that you've got a lot of work, and September comes very quickly. And we have the summer coming upon us when all these people are raising complaints. I guess based on what Councillor Wink had said, I'm all in favor of having an interim bylaw.
And that way it may take some pressure off of the director.
That's right.
That wouldn't have to be completed, her work doesn't have to be completed by end of August.
Right.
I could make a motion, get a motion to amend this.
What's the thought?
No, the interim control bylaw would need a motion at the next council.
Okay.
It needs a resolution at council.
So then I just caused the question at this point the way it is. Okay, so does anyone require me to read this again? No? Okay, so I'll put this to question. All those in favor? Carries. Okay, put forward by Councillor Corr. Agenda item 5.1, 1120 Hay Street Long-Term Plan and Financial Implications. That Committee of the Whole receive this report on 1120 Hay Street Long-Term Plan and Financial Implications, and that committee recommend that council proceed with the sale of the lands that were declared surplus with respect to 1120 Hay Street. This is where you need to skedaddle. Alrighty, okay, so any discussion here?
Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to state my position. My vote to sell is based on the following confirmations from the CAO and responsible senior staff. And I just want to reiterate these. The existing green space, including paddle courts and playground areas behind Rhodes Court, has a green space as well, that all the green spaces to be maintained. The area being sold is the paved parking lot, the old arena buildings and outbuildings. My conditions of sale to the developer will include no rear lanes, no secondary units, Airbnb or businesses, building designs that are compatible with the present neighborhood. The majority of the residents that I've spoken to have indicated to me they want to sell the property. I believe the market conditions are proper, favorable right now to sell it. And they don't want the projects that are on the books from previous years to be paid off in their 2020 taxes. So that's basically my position.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think we need to get rid of all our expenses from 2015, 16, 17, and 18. That's what this is going to cover. Get rid of that and the liability that's happening there now and being abandoned. Hopefully, we can get a little extra money for it and possibly cover a swing set or something for the playgrounds that we might need. I'm not kidding, I'm not making a joke of it, something for Lookout in Wheeling Park. To put that to rest too. Get everything that's from the past, put to sleep.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Madam Chair, so am I correct in saying that the existing plan will be scrapped and we're gonna allow developers come to us with their own plan? And,
So the way this currently reads is that we proceed with the sale of the lands, but I would actually ask, I suppose, the Director of Planning to answer that with regards to the ability to stipulate, as far as we've got the proposed plan, how we move forward.
Yes, Madam Chair, through you. If council does not wish to see that proposed plan attached to the offer of purchase and sale, then that should not be made a condition of the purchase and sale. And just put the lands on the market for residential use and let the developer come to you with their plans.
I agree with that.
Further discussion? So, to that end, I think we have to be very clear going forward, if that's the route we want to take, that we have to be very clear with our communications plan going forward, because we've had an awful lot of communications with people over the past several, 16 months, something like that, to talk about a proposed plan, which they have looked at. It's been what we've posted in the paper, it's what we've posted online, and if we're going to stray from that, then there has to be some rationale as to why we're straying from that, because that is what they've been looking at for so long. So if we're going to open it up to something that's different than that, it just has to be communicated as such.
Will that not be up to the real estate company to put that out? I mean, we're not selling it, I mean, we're selling it, but we're hiring a real estate to sell it. So I would think they would list the conditions as opposed to us putting it on a website.
I just look at it, the point that we've had so much discussion with folks and so much feedback, don't I know, feedback that people made their decision that when we put it to vote, they were looking at on their screen, when they went online to vote, they were looking at a proposed plan that looked a certain way. And now that's not the way that we're necessarily going to move forward. So there has to be some rationale to why something that they were told is the direction we're going to move is no longer that way. So I don't know if they want to hear that from the real estate company. I'm thinking they should probably hear that from us.
Oh, you got to do it.
So go ahead.
Madam Chair, through you, yes, and if there were going to be any changes to the plan, and it would require public consultation process in terms of if there's going to require any amendments to the zoning bylaw. A subdivision application would also require public consultation. There are public meetings that are required, so there would be that as an opportunity to communicate to the public once we know what that might be. And then if you want to communicate something in advance, just in terms of that the town is proceeding with the sale of the lands and, you know, with respect to it being developed for residential purposes, but, you know, not necessarily that preferred plan.
Through you, Madam Chair. Through to you, Madam Director. I was of the understanding the conditions that I'd like to see there as a counselor, they were minor variances to the plan, and we wouldn't have to go through major plan revisions.
Madam Chair, through you, there is still a plan of subdivision that would be required, and that is a public consultation process. There's public meetings, it's agency circulation and review. And depending on what they come forward with, in terms of how drastic they may not comply with the zoning bylaw or not, would determine whether or not they need variances or a zoning bylaw amendment. So without seeing the plan and knowing what that is, we can't determine at this point whether it would just be, you know, minor little tweaks, or is it something more significant?
Any other discussion? So I guess at this point, we'd want to ensure then we don't have a motion put forward then to make an amendment that would stipulate that we're not going to have the listing include a preferred plan for development. So somebody needs to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Don't need a seconder, right? 'Cause we're in policy. See, I'm getting it done. All right, so again, so the amendment would be that there isn't going to be a stipulation then for a preferred plan for development included with this. And I'll call this then to vote. All those in favor?
On the amendment?
On the amendment? Yeah. Okay, so that carries.
And this is amended.
Okay, so agenda item 5.1 as amended, I'll call that. All those in favor? Carried. Okay.
Yeah, I had to touch on it.
All right. Put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, agenda item 5.3, policy council staff relationships, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the, oh, sorry, I'm going to interrupt myself, actually. We should probably ask our councillor to return back, yes? I just thought, seems like there's not a full house.
He's gone home.
Raptors,
Why did they go?
they're up by 14. They're up by 14, it's not over yet,
Oh, come on.
fourth quarter.
Can't wait till the cash flow tomorrow.
I bet.
Start sharing
That's
it.
around the pipe.
Keep this one as a surprise for you. No, you like that?
Yes, made my day. Made my day. I can't wait till I get the cash flow tomorrow.
You haven't sold it yet.
It'll be sold.
So we're just at item 5.3,
Property and cars gold.
and this is put forward by Councillor Wink, policy of council staff relationships, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the council staff relationship policy report, and that committee recommend that the policy be submitted to council for approval at their next regular meeting scheduled for June 3rd, 2019. Any discussion?
Yeah, I've got a motion that the proposed council staff relationship policy be referred back to staff, and that staff be requested to simplify the policy to remove any cross-reference policy that duplication language, and that staff be requested to present the amended policy for consideration at the June Policy and Priorities Committee meeting.
Okay. Discussion on that from anyone? So that's your motion?
That's correct.
Okay, so the motion then as amended, all those in favor? Carries. Okay, and put forward by Councillor Wink. 6.1, adjournment, that this regular meeting of council be adjourned to the next regular scheduled meeting for June 3rd, following council. All those in favor?
I know we approved that, but didn't say we-
Great.
Like the party's over.
Be the first time in 10 years that this will be the first